He spent my last dollar on another woman until the bank froze his cards. The day I discovered my boyfriend spent my last dollar on another woman was the same day I decided to ruin his life. I met Daniel in the most cliché way possible. He bumped into me at the coffee shop and called it fate. He had that warm smile, that smooth confidence that made my stomach flip. His eyes locked onto mine like I was the only person in the room. He bought my coffee without me asking, stayed talking for an hour about books and dreams, and asked for my number before leaving. He promised he'd text. Most guys never did.
But Daniel?
He texted before I even got home. Already missing those eyes, it said. Looking back now, I realize I wasn't meeting my soulmate that day. I was meeting my biggest mistake, my worst nightmare wrapped in expensive cologne and perfect words. But in that moment, with his voice still echoing in my head and butterflies dancing in my stomach, I thought I'd finally found someone real.
Someone who saw me.
Someone who wouldn't leave like all the others. I couldn't have been more wrong about anything in my entire life. He texted good morning before sunrise every single day, without fail. He sent playlists filled with love songs that reminded him of me, showed up at my job with flowers for no reason, and wrote these long, beautiful messages about our future together and how he'd been waiting his whole life for someone like me. My friends kept saying I was lucky. My mom absolutely adored him, kept asking when we'd get engaged. Even my skeptical best friend Lily, who hated every guy I'd ever dated, admitted he seemed different from my usual terrible choices. I thought so too, until luck ran out and reality crashed in like a wrecking ball. He'd talk about the trips we'd take to Europe, the house we'd buy in the suburbs, the life we'd build together with kids and dogs. Every word felt like a promise wrapped in gold. He made me believe in fairy tales again after years of cynicism. He made me feel chosen, special, protected, worth something. But fairy tales don't exist in real life, and Daniel was no Prince Charming. He was the villain wearing a crown. After 6 months together, the little eyes started creeping in like shadows at dusk, subtle at first. Late-night calls he couldn't explain, always stepping outside to answer them in hushed tones. Receipts for fancy restaurants I'd never been to, tucked carelessly in his jacket pocket. Strange perfume smells on his collar that definitely weren't mine. When I asked questions, he always had excuses ready and waiting. Work dinners with demanding clients, his boss making him attend networking events, his mother being sick and needing him. And I always wanted to believe him, because doubting him meant admitting I might be wrong about us. It meant facing the terrifying possibility that this perfect love story was just another chapter in my long book of romantic failures. So I pushed the doubts down deep and held on even tighter to what we had. I ignored the red flags waving violently right in my face. I convinced myself that trust meant never questioning, never doubting, never protecting yourself. That's what love was supposed to be, right? Blind faith? Then came the day everything changed forever, the day I got laid off from my marketing job. Budget cuts, they said. Nothing personal, just business. But it felt deeply personal when they handed me that cardboard box for my desk items and walked me out like a criminal. I'd given them 3 years of my life. I called Daniel immediately, crying so hard I could barely form words or catch my breath. He rushed over within 20 minutes, held me tight on my couch, and whispered, "We'll get through this together, babe. I've got you. We're a team, remember?" His arms felt like safety in that moment. His words felt like ironclad promises. But when I looked up at his face through my tears, something was off in his expression. His eyes were already somewhere else, calculating something I couldn't see or understand. That distant look, that subtle shift in his energy. That should have been my first real warning. But grief and fear make you blind to things you'd normally catch immediately. Desperation makes you stupid. Rent was due in exactly 2 weeks, and my savings were dangerously thin after years of underpaying jobs. I started selling everything I owned just to stay afloat. I sold my laptop that I'd saved 6 months to buy, my entire jewelry collection from birthdays and Christmases past, even my grandmother's antique bracelet that she'd given me before she died, the one I'd sworn on her grave I'd never part with. Each item felt like losing a piece of myself, of my history, of the people I loved. I transferred every single penny to Daniel when he showed up panicked one night, saying his landlord was threatening eviction and his bank was having technical issues processing his paycheck from his big tech job. $6,000, my entire safety net, everything I had in the world, gone in one click. He kissed my forehead afterward and called me his angel investor with that charming smile. He promised to pay me back with interest within a month. He promised this was just temporary. He promised we were a team facing life together. I believed every single word because I desperately needed to believe someone had my back in this world. 2 days later, his phone went straight to voicemail every single time I called. Morning, afternoon, evening, nothing. Just that automated voice telling me the number wasn't available. I drove to his apartment in a panic, my heart pounding violently against my ribs. The door was unlocked, swinging open at my touch. Inside, completely empty. Totally stripped bare. No furniture, no clothes, no photos. No trace that he'd ever existed there. Even the curtains were gone from the windows. Just empty rooms echoing with my footsteps and my ragged breathing. My legs gave out, and I sank to the dusty floor of that hollow apartment, staring at the dust patterns where his couch used to be.
Gone.
He was just gone. Vanished into thin air along with my $6,000, my trust, and every beautiful promise he'd ever made to me. The silence in that empty room was absolutely deafening. It screamed the truth I'd been desperately ignoring for months. I'd been played, used, manipulated, discarded like worthless garbage after he took everything I had. I found out where he went through Instagram of all places, that stupid app I'd been obsessively checking. A mutual friend's story showed him tagged at some expensive beach resort 3 states away. I clicked through with shaking hands and a sinking stomach. There he was, grinning wide on a yacht in expensive designer sunglasses I'd never seen him wear before. With her. Some gorgeous blonde woman draped across his chest like a trophy he'd won. The caption read, "Love of my life." Posted 3 days ago. Just 3 days. While I was desperately selling my dead grandmother's bracelet and crying myself to sleep, he was planning his romantic luxury getaway with someone else. Using my money. My last dollar. The money I'd scraped together by selling pieces of my history and my heart. The rage that burned through me in that moment was so hot and consuming I thought I might actually combust right there on my couch, phone clutched in my white-knuckled, trembling hand. I'd never felt hatred like that before. It was pure and powerful and terrifying. I screamed until my voice cracked and my throat burned raw and bloody. I threw my phone across the room as hard as I could, watched it crack and shatter against the wall. How could I have been so stupid? So pathetically blind? So desperately hungry for love that I missed every obvious red flag and warning sign? My best friend Lily came over that night after I sent her an incoherent string of sobbing text messages. She found me curled up on the cold bathroom floor, mascara streaked down my face, looking like death itself. She didn't say, "I told you so," even though she'd warned me multiple times to be careful with him. That something felt off. Instead, she sat down beside me on that hard tile floor and said something that changed everything, that shifted something fundamental inside me. "You don't cry over men like that forever. You destroy them. You make them pay." Her voice was pure steel wrapped in silk. For the first time since discovering Daniel's ultimate betrayal, I felt something other than crushing pain. I felt power stirring deep inside me. So I started digging into his life, fueled by pure rage and iron determination. I remembered his stories never quite lined up perfectly, his high-level tech job, his successful investment company, his mysterious business trips that lasted days. I contacted one of his old coworkers through LinkedIn, carefully pretending to be verifying employment for a background check. The guy actually laughed bitterly when I mentioned Daniel's name. "Daniel? Work here? No way. That guy's a con artist." Turns out, Daniel wasn't an employee at that prestigious tech company like he claimed. He was the infamous con artist everyone in the office warned HR about after he tried to steal confidential client information and financial data. He'd been fired and literally escorted out by security guards. Everything he'd told me was a carefully constructed, elaborate lie. Every detail, every story, every promise, every dream, all complete fiction designed to manipulate me. And I'd swallowed it all whole, like the desperate fool he obviously thought I was. I found other women through a reverse image search of his photos online, going through every picture I'd ever seen. 3 of them in different cities across the country, all with eerily similar stories that made my blood run ice cold. He'd stolen from each one, promising forever and happily ever after before vanishing with their money just like he did with mine. The pattern was identical, like he was following a script. One woman lost $8,000 for his mother's surgery. Another lost her entire inheritance from her father, $15,000 for his business investment opportunity. The third had been smart enough to only lose $2,000 before her suspicious brother hired a private investigator. He had a system, a pattern, a well-practiced routine. We were marks, nothing more than dollar signs and opportunities. He thought he was untouchable, too clever and charming to ever face real consequences. He thought wrong. Because now 4 furious, wounded women had found each other through the internet, and we were absolutely done being silent victims. We wanted blood. Lily's brother worked in a bank's fraud investigation department, and she set up an urgent meeting without telling me first. We met at a diner on the edge of town, whispering intensely over cold fries and endless coffee refills like we were planning an elaborate heist. He listened carefully to everything, taking detailed notes on a small legal pad. When I finished my story, he leaned back in the cracked vinyl booth and said, "If he's using stolen funds, operating fake businesses, using fake names, or running accounts under aliases, the bank will absolutely flag it. We just need enough solid evidence to start a formal investigation." He slid a paper across the sticky table with a list of specific things we'd need to collect: account numbers, transaction records, communications, anything connecting him to the money. For the first time in weeks of crying and rage, I smiled. A real, genuine smile. The kind that comes from knowing justice might actually be possible. The kind that comes from realizing revenge is within reach. I texted Daniel from a burner phone number I bought specifically for this, carefully pretending to be a wealthy potential client interested in his fake investment business. I'd found his professional website through some deep internet searching, all stock photos and plagiarized testimonials from real companies. He fell for my trap instantly, immediately, pathetically, because greedy people always do. Within an hour, he sent me detailed information about his business, including his business account information, routing numbers, even screenshots from his personal banking app showing his supposedly successful investment portfolio. He was so eager and desperate to scam yet another innocent person that he handed me everything I needed to completely destroy him. I forwarded every message, every screenshot, every incriminating detail directly to Lily's brother. We had him. Finally, after weeks of pain and planning, we had him by the throat. And he had absolutely no idea the trap was closing around him, that his days of freedom were numbered. We handed everything we'd collected to the fraud investigation team: thick folders of printed emails, bank transfer records, screenshots of his conversations with all 4 women, everything. 3 separate accounts under fake business names and LLC registrations. Multiple transfers from different women in different states, all following the same pattern. All linked back to Daniel through IP addresses, phone numbers, email accounts, and behavior patterns the experienced investigators recognized immediately from other cases. They said cases like this usually took months, or even years, to build properly for prosecution. But Daniel had been sloppy and overconfident in his success. He'd left a trail wide enough to drive a semi-truck through. They told us to sit tight, stay completely quiet and off social media, and let them work their investigation properly. The waiting was absolute torture. Every single day felt like a year. Every hour dragged by painfully. But I knew something Daniel didn't know. His clock was ticking down rapidly to 0, and he couldn't hear it yet. He was still living his best life on my money. 3 agonizing days later, I got a text from Lily's brother that made my heart race with pure satisfaction. His cards are frozen. Every single one. They'd flagged all his accounts for fraudulent activity and suspicious patterns, frozen his assets pending a full investigation, and red-flagged his social security number across multiple banking systems nationwide. He couldn't access a single penny. Not from his checking account, not from his savings account, not from those clever fake business accounts he thought made him untouchable. Everything he'd stolen, everything he'd scammed through manipulation and lies, every dollar he thought he'd gotten away with clean, completely locked down, inaccessible, frozen solid. I sat on my bed staring at that text message, reading it over and over, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Vindication. Sweet, powerful, intoxicating vindication. The hunter had just become the hunted. The predator had become the prey. And he had no idea what hit him. Daniel called me that very same night from an unknown number, his voice frantic and high-pitched with pure panic and confusion. Babe. Oh my God. Babe, I need your help right now. The bank completely messed up somehow. I can't access any of my accounts at all. He was breathing hard and fast, talking a mile a minute, spinning some desperate story about technical errors and system glitches and computer problems. I said absolutely nothing. Just held the phone silently to my ear, listening to him completely unravel in real time. Listening to fear and confusion creep into his voice as he slowly realized something was very, very wrong with his perfect plan. Are you there? Please, I really need you. This is serious. Everything's frozen. Still, I stayed completely silent, savoring every single second of his terror and confusion like fine wine. Finally, after letting him beg and panic, I spoke in a calm, cold voice. Funny. That's exactly how I felt when you disappeared with my money. He tried desperately to recover, switching tactics instantly from panic to smooth manipulation.
What?
Baby, that whole thing was a misunderstanding. I can explain everything if you let me. But right now, I really need help urgently. Can you lend me just a few hundred till this banking thing clears up? Please? I'm desperate here. His voice dripped with fake sweetness and manufactured vulnerability, the exact same tone he'd used when he convinced me to sell my grandmother's precious bracelet. I almost laughed out loud at the sheer audacity. The absolutely shameless audacity of this man asking me for more money after stealing everything I had in the world. You want money from me? I asked calmly, almost amused.
Yes.
Please, I'm really desperate. I'll pay you back double, I swear. I let the silence stretch uncomfortably until he started pathetically begging again. Then I delivered the line I'd been rehearsing in my head. My last dollar says karma finally found you, Daniel. Then I hung up without waiting for a response, blocked the number immediately, and smiled wider than I had in months. Without access to money or credit, Daniel spiraled fast and hard like a plane with no engine. The yacht girl dumped him within 48 hours. I know because she posted about fake people with fake lives on her Instagram story, with obvious subtext. His luxury car got repossessed right from a restaurant parking lot while he was inside pretending he could still afford the expensive bill. Other diners watched and whispered. He started desperately crashing on friends' couches, spinning increasingly elaborate stories about temporary setbacks and bank errors that would be fixed soon. But word travels incredibly fast in small social circles. People started connecting dots, asking uncomfortable questions, pulling away from him slowly. One friend posted a vague warning about lending money to certain people you think you know. Daniel commented defensively, trying to defend himself. The friend immediately blocked him. His carefully constructed image and reputation was crumbling like a sandcastle at high tide. Watching from a safe distance through mutual friends, I felt absolutely no sympathy. Only deep, satisfying satisfaction. He'd built his life on lies. Now those lies were burying him alive. One of the women I'd found earlier, her name was Amanda, created a group chat with all 4 of us victims. We compiled absolutely everything we had, screenshots of his romantic messages, proof of transfers and transactions, bank slips, fake business documents, photos of him with different women wearing the exact same outfit, even voice messages. We didn't just have evidence anymore. We had a complete, airtight case file. Amanda suggested we go public with everything. Women need to know what he looks like, how he operates, his tactics, she said firmly. So we created a detailed post with his photo, his real full name, all his known aliases, and the bold title, Serial Scammer Preying on Women. Protect yourself. We posted it everywhere we could think of: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, local community groups, dating app warning pages. It went viral overnight, spreading like wildfire. Thousands of shares. Hundreds of comments from women saying, "Oh my God, he almost got me too," or "He messaged me last month." We'd exposed him completely. His face was everywhere. His tactics were public. He was finished. When the authorities finally showed up at his new place, really just his buddy's basement that he'd been crashing in, he thought it was a mistake or a prank. I heard the whole story later from Amanda, who somehow got all the details from the friend's girlfriend. Daniel answered the door in stained sweatpants, looking confident and irritated at being bothered. "Can I help you?" The officers asked his full name. He confirmed it casually. They told him he was under arrest for multiple counts of fraud, theft by deception, and identity theft. He actually laughed in their faces, said, "This is ridiculous. I'm a legitimate businessman. There's been a mistake." They cuffed him while he was still arguing loudly about his legitimate business operations and his rights. His friend watched from the top of the stairs, slowly shaking his head in disbelief. Daniel kept yelling about calling lawyers and filing lawsuits as they put him in the back of the police car. Nobody came to his defense. Nobody vouched for him. He was completely alone, finally. The story hit local news just 2 days later with a headline that made my heart sing: "Local man arrested for defrauding multiple women through romantic schemes." The article included specific details about his operation, the estimated total he'd stolen from various women, over $30,000, and his calculated pattern of behavior. The picture they used in the article? Him in that same yacht shirt from Instagram, grinning like he owned a world and had no conscience. The comments section absolutely exploded with activity. Former classmates, ex-girlfriends, old roommates, former coworkers. Everyone came forward with stories. "He stole my rent money sophomore year. He borrowed my car and never returned it. He scammed my sister out of $3,000. The portrait that emerged wasn't just of a con artist. It was of a serial predator who'd been doing this successfully for years, maybe even a decade. How many women had he hurt? How many lives had he damaged? The number was staggering and horrifying. He emailed me from jail using some kind of monitored prison email system. The subject line read, "Please read, important." I almost deleted it immediately without opening it, but curiosity and a need for closure won out. "I didn't mean to hurt you specifically," he wrote in carefully chosen words. "I just needed help and made some bad choices. I was desperate and struggling. You have to understand, life got really hard, and I panicked. I'm genuinely sorry for the pain I caused." No mention of the elaborate lies, the calculated manipulation, the cold cruelty. Just excuses wrapped in fake vulnerability and self-pity. Just blame shifting and minimizing. I replied with one single sentence: "You taught me what help really looks like. It's not taking, it's earning." I didn't expect a response. I didn't want one. That email was for me, not him. It was my final word, my closing statement, my period at the end of our terrible sentence. I blocked the prison email system and never looked back. We all got official restitution letters eventually through the court system, informing us we'd been named in his sentencing and were entitled to repayment through his prison work program. He owed thousands across multiple cases in multiple states. The letter said payments would come in small amounts over years, maybe even decades, at minimum wage prison rates. I stared at mine for a long time, this official government document acknowledging my pain and loss. Then I did something that surprised even me. I signed the form, but instead of taking the money for myself, I donated my entire portion to a women's financial support and education fund. Amanda did the same. Then the other women followed. We turned our collective $30,000 in restitution into something bigger and more meaningful, a fund that would help other women escape dangerous situations like ours. His theft became someone else's freedom. His crime became someone else's fresh start. It felt right. It felt powerful. It felt like winning. Months later, after processing everything, I started a blog about financial empowerment for women, how to spot financial abuse early, how to protect yourself emotionally and practically from predators. I titled it My Last Dollar, reclaiming the phrase that had defined my absolute lowest moment. I wrote about my entire experience without shame, laid it all out honestly and vulnerably. Within weeks, traffic absolutely exploded beyond anything I imagined. Women shared their own stories in the comment section. Some were still trapped in similar situations. Some had recently escaped. All of them desperately needed to know they weren't alone in this. I started a newsletter, then a podcast, then online workshops. The blog grew into something I'd never imagined. Not just a warning, but a whole community of survivors who refused to stay victims. Daniel had tried to take everything from me. Instead, he'd accidentally given me a purpose bigger than both of us. A mission. A calling. One night, about a year after everything happened, I got a DM on Instagram from an unknown account. My finger hovered over the delete button. I'd gotten plenty of weird messages since going public. Then I saw the profile picture, the yacht girl. Her message was short but powerful. I saw your blog and podcast. I need you to know something important. When I met him, he told me you were his crazy ex who'd stolen from him and stalked him. He was actively setting me up to be his next mark after I'd loaned him money for his sick mother. Your viral post stopped him before he could. Thank you for being brave. I was next. I stared at those words, feeling the crushing weight of what might have been. How many women had we saved by speaking up? How many futures had we protected? How many lives had we changed? She sent one more message. You're a hero to so many of us. I wasn't a hero, but together, we'd become something stronger and more powerful than victims. We'd become warriors. Now, when I think of Daniel, I don't feel the burning rage I once did. I don't even feel hate anymore, just emptiness where he used to be. Just a strange kind of gratitude, mixed with pity for who he is. He's still serving time in prison, and I'm living the life he tried to steal from me. My blog has grown into a full platform with thousands of followers. I speak at events and conferences about financial safety. I consult with organizations about protecting vulnerable populations from romance scams. I've built something real and meaningful from the ashes of his lies. Because losing everything to him gave me something he'll never have, no matter how many women he cons, or how many schemes he runs, or how many years he serves. Peace earned through surviving hell, purpose built from pain and rage, and power gained the right way through honesty and hard work. My last dollar wasn't the end of my story like he thought it would be. It was actually the beginning of something greater. It was my origin story. And I'm just getting started.